Hello, everyone. So, I am tasked today to rightly divide the Word of God. No, so I'm praying and hoping that I will become a tool and a channel to deliver this message. And this message is quite straightforward, and at the same time, it's quite ambiguous because there are principles or hidden gems. Just like you play a video game and then you go through some you know, side uh, side quest, and then you found like some hidden gems prepared by the developers. In this one, prepared by God Himself. Technically, God is actually a very good developer of the entire universe, if you know what I mean. Like, He designed all stuff, and the limit is the speed of light. All right, that's not on my notes. All right, so and just a disclosure for the new ones here. No, we're doing the First Corinthians book study, and we are on Corinthians chapter 7. And Paul is specifically dealing with marriage and singlehood and all these things. But um, from the last sermon, David's sermon, we discovered that it's more than talking about marriage and becoming single and how to behave or how to navigate this Christian world with this kind of emotions and maybe hormones for the singles. But it's more of like the principle behind it that we can actually use in a different aspects and area of our lives. All right? So we're on that chapter now. Next thing is there's like an activity above. So if na ay tug just focus on the sermon. Yeah, just focus on the sermon kay I think we don't have control sad kay that's their own reservation man. So maybe next time we can bounce and like bring a broom no tug. Anyway, that's not so Christianly for us. No. So, all right. So, uh, okay. So this particular chapter is written by Paul. Of course, it is towards the Corinthian church, and Paul actually has a very specific message to them all. And Paul uh, is presenting it in a context of marriage. Because marriage is something that people can relate to. And marriage is, being single is something that people can relate to as well. So the message becomes more intensified. And what is the biggest distraction of a person that we can call a reasonable distraction? It's actually relationships. It's actually these desires. Right man mo married, right man ang mo married, di ba? Right man nga nako nga mo provide sa ang wife, di ba? So like I focus on these things. I'm doing these good things, but later on we forget that we are actually neglecting some really spiritual things. And then we end up starving, we end up falling away, and we end up on a place where we would say ba nga, Lord, layuan naman ako nimo. Di ba? All right. So right now, and I think most of you know about this, in a world of human philosophies, ito sa tag-filosofiya, kadayot. So in a world of human philosophy, we have two overarching umbrellas of philosophies. The first one is what we call idealism. All right, ideal. Ideal man. Or ideal woman. So idealism. And the other one is what we call the realism. And these are the overarching umbrella of school of thoughts, right? Idealism deals with absolutes. It deals with ideals, and it deals with particularly a specific boundaries. Like there's like a black and white when you say an ideal. We'll say like love, that's an ideal, di ba? We say hate, that's an ideal. So like there's like a distinct comparison between love and between hate. When you say I have an ideal person in my mind, you think of those characteristics that make the person ideal. And then, by doing so, you are actually excluding some people who don't have that characteristic that are non-ideal for you. The point is, idealism is, is based on this thing that exists in your mind. All right? And on the other half, we have this realism. And realism is based on facts, based on real life events, and this is mostly based on experiences. And kaning mga advanced na in age, they are getting more realistic. Kaning mga young pa in age, they are more idealist. Di ba? As you can see, it comes with an experience to become, to be realist. And I touch on this concern because Paul is actually addressing a very realistic concern on the Corinthian church. And these are realistic concerns that falls on the gray areas. Gray areas ni siya. So we will see that Paul even acknowledges that this is a gray area and this is his own take on the matter. So we'll dive into that. But I just want to give you a little bit of disclosure before you proceed. So we have this human philosophy of idealism and we have this human philosophy of realism. But if we look at the Word of God, di ba? The Word of God is actually an intersection of both. You have truth, that's ideal. You have specific events in the Bible that we consider to be factual, we consider to be accurate, historically accurate. That's really ideal. Di ba? When you come to think of it, David went to someone and then you say, I believe that. That is very ideal, right? But on the other side, the Bible also deals with principles, deals with how to make better decision based on the ideal, the internal perspective that we are holding on to. Diba? So the Bible is actually the intersection of both, and Paul is addressing the Corinthian church about these two things. So we are in the part where Paul gives us some general guiding principles on, number one, how to navigate this Christian life. How to navigate this Christian life. Number two is, if we will look at the verse 25, now concerning the betrothed, I have no command from the Lord, but I give my judgment as one who by the Lord's mercy is trustworthy. I think that in the view of the present distress, it is good for a person to remain as he is. Number two is, number one is how to navigate this Christian life. Number two is what to do when crisis, or shall we say, temptation kicks in. What to do. And third is, we will see the grand picture and grand example of responsibility. Now, if we look at verse 25 and verse 26, we can actually see here that the main message that Paul is pushing, or that Paul is presenting to us, is the specific word on the present distress or the impending crisis. So Paul is giving us a marital perspective. He is giving an advice, but at the same time, he is pointing out the present distress that the Corinthian church is facing. You ask me, more, what is the current distress? What is this current distress? I would say, I don't know. We can just say, maybe it is persecution during their time. You know, during this time, Christian persecution is really on the all-time high, di ba? So, people get martyred for the name of Christ. It could be economic crisis, di ba? During their time, we all know that a certain civilization would rise up, and at the same time, a certain civilization would go down. It goes up and goes down. And during their time in Corinthians, we all know that there's no Corinthian country na karon, di ba? So basically, there's like maybe economic crisis during this time, and maybe it's related to seasons, maybe famines, maybe rain, maybe flood, maybe all of these things. But see, even though we don't know this specific impending crisis, we can actually know what are the specific impending crisis that all of us collectively knows. For example, in the Philippines, there's like an economic downturn of the Philippine peso. In politics, we can see that, corruption is still there, even though there are different reforms and programs implemented by the government. And of course, we can see the seasons change, di ba? So the crops don't yield that much na because the months there's climate change. That's overall in the Philippines. But what are the personal? Like if you think of yourself right now sitting there, and you in the confines of your mind, bitaw, think of what are the crises that bugs you right now. What are these personal hurdles that keeps you awake at night? Ano na lang? That keeps you worried. That keeps you, in a way, distracted from effectively becoming a Christian, or not becoming a Christian, but serving for the Lord. What are these things? Maybe this is related to like uncertainty. Diba? Uncertainty in work. Uncertainty in businesses. Maybe it's because of you as a person. Di ko ganana ako kay I have these temperamental issues. Dali ra ko masuko, init ko, I cannot deal with this, we deal with that. It's intrapersonal problem. Maybe it's interpersonal problem. My family is toxic. I like to use the word, no? My family doesn't understand me. My friends doesn't understand me. Or even, I don't have any friends. Diba? So, these are the impending personal. Even addiction. This is a present crisis that we are facing. Addiction. And when I say addiction, automatic, no? Goes to drugs. But no. Addiction is a generic word and term for something that you repeatedly do and it became a habit. So, you only know about these things, di ba? And the thing here is, it's really easy to keep a secret sin and, present yourself as a Christian. And it's different to really acknowledge that and to know that this is my impending crisis right now. As Paul is saying, you need to know the impending crisis. And maybe it's financial capability. We have hopes and dreams and plans that we want to know. So, financial capability. So there are lots of things that bugs in our mind na it's the current season right now. And maybe because of the distractions outside, no, we cannot pinpoint the specific crisis that we are dealing with in our hearts and the specific crisis that is related to our Christian walk. The core, atugid sa heart. And now, if we will go to verse 27 and 28, are you bound to a wife? Do not seek to be free. Do not seek to be free. So, of course, di ba? Yung wife. Are you free from a wife? Do not seek a wife. Like, what, Paul? But if you do marry, you have not sinned. And if a betrothed woman marries, she has not sinned. Yet those who marry will have worldly troubles. And I would spare you that. What Paul is saying, mandire. what Paul is saying is, don't be hasty in changing your status. Don't be hasty. That means you need to make sure of your decision before jumping into it. Because of what? Because there is an impending crisis. Ang ganado ron, 65 pesos na ang kilo. Impending crisis, onya, uminyo pa ka. Oh, that's basically what Paul is saying. It's about changing your status. And we can apply this not just for marriage, but Paul uses the marriage as a function to demonstrate this. But if we will put this on our personal lives, there are lots of aspects on our lives that we should not make a rash decision about. Right? We need to sit down, assess, reflect, and think about the impending crisis, and I have this decision to make. So, what should I do now? So you are thinking na, how could I make this decision right now, and then na ay crisis diha. So the thing there is that we need to tread lightly on these things, because as I say, these are gray areas, and we need to seek advice on our elder. But what Paul is saying, if there is a crisis, he is saying that you should remain where you are. By that, he doesn't mean don't change. It means stop and think and reflect before taking another step, because it's a matter of it's like if you married, you cannot unmarry. It's not control X and control Z, right? That you cannot undo. Yeah, you cannot undo it. So Paul is saying, do not rush these decisions, because this can make and break you as a person and your Christianity, maybe testimony, maybe your walk with God. And the thing here is being reinstated bitaw after it's really a difficult process, di ba? Like, yeah, there's grace and one, but it takes time. The healing takes time. The struggle takes time. And on this one, Paul has also his opinion, di ba? If you look at the verse here, he said, I have no command from the Lord, but I give my judgment. So he's saying, this is no command. This is no direct command, like yes or no. But Paul is basically speaking for himself. And this is where the realism comes in. Diba? Based on my experiences, based on the missionary journeys that I have, based on how many times I got hit with a stone in the head, based on those things, no? Based on everything, as a solo with a companion missionary kanang journey, no? Iyang gitake. Paul is speaking for himself from experience. Paul is always on the go. He is always under threat of persecution, and he needs to focus on the ministry 100%, right? By speaking of Paul should remain where he is, what's the impending crisis that Paul is facing? Diba? He has this burden, diba, to preach the gospel across Mediterranean. Diba? So he goes into a missionary journey. Let's just say Paul has a family left somewhere. Then Paul will be in an LDR relationship. Di ba? So Paul would go to this church and would write a letter. Ang letter noon, dili na 4 Corinthians for my wife na noon. Di ba? Kaya may text and chat sa una. So they would be constantly communicating. Is it bad? No. But is it a distraction? Yes. Diba? So Paul is saying, this is my burden and this is what I do. So I remain on this. And I don't want to also have them, like, musuffer sila because of me. Di ba? Family can be tortured. May nga si Paul, pungguti na lang kog liyog. Pungguti, dali ah. Di ba? Adi ka punggutan sa putlan sa kamot. Oh, sige, putlan for Christ. Paglingi ni Paul, na iyang baby. Recant or no? Ikaw, mo recant ka. When said, di man na believer, di man na Christian o baby. Swear that child, dili na siya Christian. But, di ba? Pagkapalamuot, no? Palamuot, pamaynawa, no? But the thing there is that it will really be a burden for him kung naa siya family. And it would be something that is like a baggage bitaw nga yan on. So, that's why he's saying you should remain single as you are. Di ba? And family ultimately is like, maybe a distraction for him to function as an apostle of Christ. But at the same time, Paul understood that being married, if you choose and you like and you're destined for it, we are sovereign of God, no? Marriage ko, Lord, di ba? And your sovereignty. If we are destined for it, then that is no sin. That is no sin. Paul is just saying there's a crisis, and if you choose to marry, then face whatever it is. And Paul understood that there's no idealistic structure in all of this. That's why he's saying, I have no command from the Lord. Because there's no idealistic structure that we could put upon. Kani, sala na ni, kay nag-marry siya. Kani, sala ni siya, kay remain siya single. There's no idealistic structure in all of this. He was speaking from experience, and this is more like a recommendation, a direct command that you need to first assess what is your current impending crisis before making a big decision. So for example, alcoholic ka, and then you are hired as a secretary sa bar. So, what is your impending crisis? Alcoholic ko. And then, what's the decision you should make? Ato ko sa bar. Like, you're putting yourself into that temptation. Di ba? The issue here is not, mo remain ba kog single? Or mo remain ba kog married? Di ba? Di ba? Paul saying, should I leave my wife like for one, or should I be married right now? That is not the point. The point is, the issue here is, we can find the issue here on verse 29. So in verse 29, you can see here that this is what I mean. Brothers, the appointed time has grown very short. The appointed time has grown very short. What is Paul saying? Paul is saying is, life is short. Life is short. Guys, when you say 2022, that's 2,000 years. How old are you compared to that? Di ba? Paul saying, time is short. Life is short. And this is where we can fully assess there's an impending crisis, there's a decision that I should make, and there's a realization nga, my time here on earth is very limited. What should I prioritize? Should I stress myself looking for a spouse? Should I stress myself building up this business of mine? Should I, like, those are the impending crises, or those are the cares that Paul is saying. Time is short. And this is related to our life. This reflects so when you say time is short, we can also relate this to the imminent coming of God. Di ba? John said, come, Lord Jesus. Di ba? At the end, the last prayer and in the Revelation. On Matthew 24, 4, it says there, therefore you should be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. A servant who knows the master will come home anytime will be vigilant in the wait of his return. And we hopefully, faithfully wait. Also, time is short, and life in the Bible is not long, di ba? It's not described as it's a majestic thing. Life in the Bible is described as the opposite, di ba? As the opposite, you are, and just James said, you are vapor, di ba? We are vapor, like. Di ba? Wa may snow there, bro, no? But sa US or sa state nga na yung mga snow, kita mo na sa movies nga, breathe nila na yung gawas nga mist or something, and then it goes away. And you said, Lord, do you mean that's my life? And Lord will say, yes, that's it. That's your life. That's vapor. And you say, Lord, so that means my life is short. Yes, your life is short. That means I should do everything to offer or what I can give to you. Yes, you should do. Yes. Oh man. So I've been worrying a lot, aning ang mga butang, and then forgive me, Lord. I should focus on you. I should have eternal perspective. So life is short, time is short. Paul reminded us that do not put your roots too deep on this world because it's passing away. And what distracts us the most, to put our roots so deeply in this earth that it goes to what are the layers of the earth? It goes to to core of the earth. What is it? It's marriage. The moment you get married, the troubles of life comes in. Right? And amen. I speak from my experience. The troubles of life come in. You start to worry. You start to work hard, to focus more on money, earning money, because I have a future. I have kid. I have this thought of financially free and dili ko maglisod. I have a thought of investing. I have thought of something, all of this stuff. Paul is directing us to the best good distraction and excuse that a person can use to justify why he's not focusing on the spiritual things. Right? So how do you want to live? How do you want to live your life knowing that our life is short? What does Paul also say on these things? All right? So in the next line, we can see here that the present world is passing away. He's saying that if you put your roots too deep on earth, remember that very earth where your feet is planted in or on is passing away. Your life is short. The earth you're standing on is worthless. Where do you want to put your perspective on? Where do you want to put your faith on? Where do you want to put your trust on? And where you want to put your entirety, your being on? What Paul is saying here, and this could be life is short, it is fleeting, do not get attached to the temporary. And second is, this is more of question about, this is not a question about marry or to not marry. This is more about the question of being too deeply attached on the things of this world. Ingani ba? Di ba we all know that Christian, and Paul uses this, no? Like we are like, in a in a competition, di ba? Di ba? We are like sports, nasa Olympics ba? Na we are perfecting ourselves to like hit that world record, whatever that means in Christianity. We are like that, di ba? But Paul is also telling us in Ephesians that we need to wear the whole armor of God. Di ba? And wearing the whole armor means, if you have an armor, it means you have a war to fight. Di ba? You have a war to fight. So, if we are in a war ba, and for example, gira na like, da, 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 da. And then, sa akong tapad, napusilan akong best friend. Papay, naigo ko bay. What would you do at that present moment? What would you do? Would you go to your friend and mourn and cry and hilak and reminiscent the beautiful past experiences? Would you do that? Yeah, bullets are flying on your head. Would you do that, or would you pick up your rifle and fight even more sa fight? And I can mourn for later. I can do that later, and I will fight this battle sa. The answer is, obviously, you'll reserve that for later, and you'll fight the battle. Diba? You'll get there, and then if the war is over, you'll go back to your friend and you mourn. You mourn. The thing there is, Paul is saying na we are in the Christian battle. Focus on the war. Focus on this battle. These things on the side lanes are there. After the battle's done, pwede na. But don't get sidetracked that Christian living, we are constantly in a battle, in a spiritual battle. Don't lose track of what is really happening. Do not get attached on the things that the world could offer. And if you would look at the verse ba, dire. So if you look at the verse here in excuse me, no table. This is my impending crisis. Right, verse 29. So, all right, okay, so you will not lose track of, okay, so, let's move on. So, you should be thinking of now, or what is happening right now. So, life is short. We need to realize or we need to think about how we will live it. And it doesn't mean na it would be like a difficult decision to make. Like, Lord, unsa may like next big decision in my life that I should be making. It could be as simple as making a decision to get up every Sunday morning and going to church. How do you view your Sundays? And hello guys, we only have 42 Sundays in a year. That's 42 Sundays. If you count how many Sundays we will have in our entire life, knowing that the life expectancy of people in the Philippines is around, 60, 65 years old. That's short. That's how many days we will see each other's faces. That's kind of sad. Diba? Like, Monday to Friday, we always do things on our own lives, and we get to see each other every Sunday la, and that is 42 times. Of course, kanang remove the other, no? But just for specific for Sundays. Like, ingana, di ka short ang time. Does every single Sunday count for you? And this is where we need to focus on as a church. And the thing here is that there's no marvel. There's no thing to marvel upon the future, what the future will bring. We all know the future, the world will become a wicked place, and God, in the end of it, will come again and will judge the sinners and will redeem the saints. So we have a determined future. Di ba? So we have a determined future. Our life should emphasize on the activities that have an internal value. As we say, Sunday morning, you get up, you say, kapoy, church, togo balik. Or Sunday morning, you would say, hala, nami laag ron, na sale sa SM. So, what would you choose? You would choose ba church, or you would choose other stuff? For example, Bible study. Every Wednesday, we have that. For those nga, no, we have Bible study every Wednesday. So, the thing there is, we need to prioritize what is important to us, because life is short. We all gonna be unalive soon. So that's the thing. And if you are so attached with the dealing of this world, what will happen to you? This temporary existence, this fleeting thing, what will happen to us? Be, what will happen if we are so attached on this thing? The answer? You will become anxious. You will become worried. That's why Paul said in verse 32, if you read with me, I want you to be free from anxieties. So Paul is emphasizing that you don't need to worry about this stuff. You need to reprioritize what is biblical and what is spiritual compared to whatever it is worldly thing that you worry about so much. Because I want you to be free from anxieties. The married man is anxious about the things of the Lord, how to please the Lord, but the married man is anxious about worldly things, how to please his wife, and of course vice versa, and his interests are divided. And the unmarried or betrothed woman is anxious about the things of the Lord, how to be holy in body and spirit. But the married woman is anxious about worldly things, how to please her husband. I say this for your own benefit, not to lay any restraint upon you, but to promote good order and to secure your undivided devotion to the Lord. Now, the Catholic Church pushed this one a little bit further, and a little bit further. And they have ordained na their ministers, the pare and madre, would need to go to the calling of celibacy. That's why the priest and nuns don't have spouses, di ba? Di sila pwede magminyo because they are taking Paul's words as an order for them to focus on ministry lang yun, but they should not have family as a sort of distraction. But is it this, or they completely miss the point of Paul? All right, they completely miss the point of Paul. The point of Paul here is Paul is saying that it is not sin to marry. It is not sin to marry. Di ba? But it is not sin to marry. And then he pushed further na if you are married, you will need to take on responsibilities. So again, if you are married, then you will technically planting yourselves into earthly responsibilities, and then you will grow more anxious because of these anxieties, di ba? So for example, if you have a business, di ba? So you have this responsibilities to your employees, di ba? One day, ang business nimo goes bankrupt. It goes to zero. It's easy to lay off the employees, di ba? You'll just send a letter, I'm sorry, the business is not performing na, then wala na. But if you're married, and you lose your job, you would not fire your wife. You would say, "Hey wife, I don't like our family is like zero na tong bank account. Here's your kuan 30-day notice, Here's your 30-day notice." You will not do that. You will have that responsibility regardless. So imagine a man nga single, fired, oy, luyan ako eh. Atog 7-Eleven, kuha og kaon, ulis bahay, tuog. Why problema? Di ba? But if naakay wife, nakay anak, kanya, like, muka atog 7-Eleven, ngayon ka. Mag-grocery ka 7-Eleven. Di ba? So, that is what Paul is saying. There's more responsibility to it compared to singlehood. Di ba? There's responsibility into it compared to singlehood. But again, the point is it's not generally sinful because on the next topic, Paul explains it well. Nasad, no? So in verse 36, if anyone thinks that he is not behaving properly toward the betrothed or betrothed means like maybe a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a fiancé, or someone, di ba? It's not behaving properly, and if his passions are strong, it has to be, let him do as he wishes. Let them marry. It is no sin. All right. So, Paul is saying on the first verse na it's better to be single because of this benefit. But then he is saying, but it's not bad to marry. Let them marry. So, he's just giving you a warning what marriage can bring to your life. And if even if not marriage, maybe like it's a decision that you should need to make. What are the things that it would bring to your life? Is it more responsibility na nakay work, hala na hilain, ari na sad ko, hala na hilain opportunity na, ari na sad ko, like collapse ka. Di ba? So that's what Paul is saying. Don't take too much responsibility to the point that you miss Sundays, you miss discipleships, to the point nga you ignore fellowship. So it could be, all right. So and then there's a principle here that is very important. If passion is so strong, Paul is basically saying, pagminyo mo, di ba? Not behaving properly, technically is borderline sin, di ba? And how do you know that you're misbehaving properly? So we can say na it could be like burning na gyud, like init na gyud ka kaayo, like for example like na kay fiancé or girlfriend, boyfriend relationship. And then to the point nga nanay bitaw kuhit-kuhit, di ba? And this is for the singles, no? Nanay kuhit-kuhit ba? No? And you have your own words na sad nga to address each other. And kidhat lang, no? Alams na, no? Kidhat lang. There's like an entire world that you're creating. Then you would ask, how far is too far? Di ba? Once you ask this, you married na mo. Married na mo. If this question pops up, because it implies that you are seeking a line of boundary. Kani nga line. Mo ni, so dire ko mo stay. That's basically the implication of asking how far is too far. Di ba? So I can go to a boundary and say and stay and measure how strong I am. Di ba? So, dire ko. And then you have and remember the grenade guy katong sa past ga sermon, the one who had the grenade in his ass. That is on the context of unrepentance, di ba? Like mudong ko dire. But I'm gonna repurpose that guy and use it someone who would like kind of release the what do you call the flip thing, the pin, and then to the point ba nga di lagi mo buto, di wala yung buto, like that person, di ba? Di ba there's like a thing, then they would release that. Once that release, you need to throw na the grenade. So being on that position, bitaw nga, asking, how far is too far? This is boundary. I'm gonna stay here. It's like the person who tests the grenade. Nga, you don't blow because I'm so expert in this. What do you think will happen? The next thing you will know is RIP, unalive. All right, so and the other thing that you could say is you cannot enter a coal mine with a white t-shirt bitaw and expect nga dili ka mabuling inigawas, right? So there's a thing ba, and this is for individuals that are burning, no, and kwan, you can actually push it farther, but the thing there is if you push it farther, you are not this on wisdom na. You're not operating on wisdom. You are operating on your own impulses, your own feels, your own, to the point that you justify yourself in I will use the word in flirty relationships with someone, and then thinking na I will not fall into the consequences of whatever it is that I'm doing right now. I can get away with this. I can just gamay lang yun sa grenade nga before lang mo flip siya. I can just the boundary, just the tiny dot. Okay, nana ko sa dot. Let's zoom in sa dot. Oh, the dot is a circle. It's a big circle. Okay, ngita pa din kag dot sa tunga sa dot. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. In what Paul is saying, if dili kaya, then married, there's an impending crisis, face it. Di ba? But for me, I would say if there's a crisis you're facing, stay where you are. Don't make rash decision. Di ba? But verse 7, but whoever is firmly established in his heart, being under no necessity, but having his desire under control, and has determined that in his heart to keep her as his betrothed, he will do well. So then he who marries his betrothed does well, and he who refrains from marriage will do even better. What are the principles we can get from this? Paul is using marriage as a grand illustration for desires and responsibility. There's temptation and sin. And marriage, as you can see, dagko naman tanan na no? Di ba? The consummation of marriage is actually a good thing. Di ba? It's actually a good thing. What does Satan do best? He will take a good thing and spoil it. He would take the best intents in the world, unification, unity, all of these good things, good words, love, and spoil it. Paul is saying, be careful because, there's temptation, there's sin, and there is spoiling of what God is designed to be good. Marriage is an ultimate earthly responsibility because it's a grand picture of Christ and the church, right? But at the same time, if we're not careful, it would also be a justifiable attachment on this world and may cause destruction. All right, so let's now go to the different principles from this. Principle number one. Principle number one is this. Evaluate the crisis of the moment, the present distress. Evaluate. Is it related to job, economic downturn, family challenges, physical ailments, business challenges, or even in relationships? Christian ko, dili Christian ang akong giganahan. Di ba? Or Christian ko, but di ko sure nga Christian siya. Oh, di ba? So, those are the things you need to evaluate. I could not enumerate all these present challenges, but I know by the Spirit of God, that Holy Spirit in you will put it on the clarity, no? Right now. Principle number 2. Don't be hasty in changing your status. Changing single to married is not a fix. Remember that. It's not a fix, but it will magnify what is the current problems that you have. Whatever good that you have when you are single, that will magnify. Whatever bad or challenges that you have, that would also be magnified. So do not think marriage is a fix. Marriage in the Bible is never used to fix relational issues. All right? So it's not a fix. Number 2, married to single, divorce. Biyana na yung asawa kay ibalik daw ni si Idahan. We have that term, di ba? We have that term. No? Balik na nila. Iprinda na ni. Di ba? So, it's not a fix either. Di ba? If you're married na, and there are day-to-day challenges, even to the point nga may irita na kasi ang tigog kay sige. Di ba? But that's marriage, and that is something that we choose to be in. And that is something that gift from God that we could enjoy. But at the same time, while we are on the earth, we have these earthly concerns. But Paul is saying, up. Do not plant yourself. Do not get attached yourself to whatever you're dealing right now. Hala, palitaan na. Hala, nindot lagi to. Okay, palit sa taana. Uy, kanang, pwede, ganahan ako magka-child. O sige, pilam ka mo, 5. O sige, di ba? These are things na we kind of lose track of what is spiritual, what is eternal, and focus on what is on earth. Mag-make na kag-name sa mga galingon. Di ba? I want the apelido Espinola would be like a legacy sa akong mga grandkids and all. I know we're not that Pinoy, no? Sa Pinoy, it's not like that in Pinoy, but I think in Chinese, it's a big deal. And maybe Jewish, because they have the genealogies. Bilang ako, gikan ko ni kisa tong warrior, or ako, gikan ko ni David, sa line-line sila ba? But that's the point. Not just in, but this principle is not just in marriage, but it's on jobs. What if I take this job? I got this job. My life is okay now. And then suddenly, tonk. Di ba? It could be like a decision, like I need to or to Canada, to France, or to Sydney, Australia, no? Or I need to, I need to go to Sydney, or not Sydney, what's the place near New Zealand? Di ba? Daghan kayo, posting nga, sa New Zealand, daghan kayo opportunities. Are you sure ma-fix imong life in going to these places? Di ba? Are you sure? Or when you get there, you will say, maura magyapon, it's just the same feels once, it's just the same me. It's just like maybe a better place, but when you're driving your Porsche na dito kintahay kay kuan na kay it's just the same you. Tired, sleepy, want to eat steak. Ang steak sa Philippines parehas lami sa steak dito sa, like there's no difference. all that the experiences that we have is just the same. Basically, because this world is fleeting, and Paul is saying, do not attach yourself too hard, good, on those things. In purchases, ganahan ko magabalay, ganahan ko mapalit, and there's and there's a struggle right now. Would I rent? Would I purchase a property? What would you do? Taas kayo ang appraisal sa value and all. Like, these are decisions that you need to think good, that you need to think, but at the same time, you need to be careful not to get super duper attached in it. That's principle number 2. Don't hasty. Paliton ho ni. At the same time, di they afford. Pagkita ko, buyer, di na ko kabayad. That's one thing. Di ba? Mangutag ka, dako kayo. Huwag kabayad. Di ba? Those are the things that we need to check if kaya, or check the current crisis. Kaya ba song sildo? What's your current status? Do not change status if daily afford. No? Hinay tagkat-kat. And then principle number 3, and Paul emphasizes this, and emphasizes kani siya. Don't sin. More ask ni Paul, of all these impulses, married, not married, the base of it is just this word, don't sin. Whatever you do, any decisions you make, please avoid sin. If you are able to run from temptation, good, run from it. Exercise self-control, and then don't sin. That's what Paul is saying. So, for example, boyfriend, girlfriend mo, and there's an impending crisis. Shall we say, na-hospital iya mama. And namoy savings na. If you can hold yourselves na dili pa mo married, no, kay namoy savings, kay i-spend siyang mama, then kung kaya ninyo nga, like the forces of nature sa inyong bodies, nga to wait, then wait. Di ba? Unaha to. But if dili na gyud kaya, then that's not sin. Married. But since na may impending crisis, maybe you need to adjust else, di ba? Maybe like nagplano mo dito mo marry sa grandiose place, whatever place in your mind. Dire lang ta. Okay, because of this impending crisis. There's no right and wrong. There's no sin and not sin, but there's just a careful judgment and application of the principle of Paul, of what Paul is laying down. Diba? So, that's it. Principle number 4. But what if the urge is too strong? And this is, Paul said, find ways not to sin. First, marriage. The urge is too strong. Married. Di ba? For example, addicted kay ko kanang watching these things online. What should I do? Then, ganahan man ka mag-games. Play games. Di ba? Find ways. Di ba? To at least, for example, married mo, and then, imagine this, married mo, nagpugong mo, and then wala po mo na married, you fall into sin. That's great. That has consequence. Rather than, nagpugong mo, and then nagmarried mo, okay na, and then naglisod mo after, that's something that is pwede. Naglisod mo because you did the right thing. Diba? Diba? Lahi ang situation. Diba? From there to that. So, for example, like, again, this is me repeating now, like buying a property and all, or find ways to deviate desire. For example, like if you have a guy and or a girl and you can't stop thinking of that guy, like it sticks in your mind. And to the point na, you sin in your heart, di ba? kind of sin in your heart, what should you do? Find another distractions. Di ba? Do some hobby, swim, free dive. Di ba? Free dive. So, those are things na you need to be conscious of. What are the best decisions that I could make? So, I have an example here. For example, accountant ka, and then you're doing the accounting and stuff sa business. But you cannot help, you are in an impending crisis, like, no, like, na medical crisis sa imong family nga you cannot help it, but you are on the brink na of mukupit bitawag kwarta from the company. And of course, you kupit it because you use it something justifiable kay, maybe in hospital imong anak, you kupit na. And then, padung nagyug ka, hapit nagyug ka magkakupit, hapit nagyud ka mo fall into sin. Di ba? So what should you do? So, the best route to this is, what are the options available nimo? Maybe you can find another job. I don't know. Maybe to find additional job after work. So, na ko'y job diri ron, para dili ko kakupit, I would consider finding another job after work, but that means less time na sa family nako. So that's the compromise there. 'Di ba? So it should be like talk upon the family na sad, and the family would say, okay lang dad, kanang support kami sa imong decisions and all. Tabangan ka na mo. Once you arrive at home, kami na kuha sa imong sapatos, kami na kuan, like go na sa imong work, sa second work nimo. So it makes the family bond stronger. But you can see the principle there nga, padong nagyud ko kasala. But dili man sad healthy kung duha ang trabaho. Asa may hong pilion? Ang makasala ko or ang something nga dili sala, but it's challenging for me. So asa man ko mapili, diri or dinha? As Christian, you should uphold integrity no matter how tempting it is. Dili gyud na nimo buhaton. But there's another way nga maybe less family time, less ang more work hours nga maningkamot gyud kag work, but at the same time wala ka ni sin. This is what Paul is saying na do not sin. The same as marriage. Hapit na mo marriage, then minyo. Happy magkupit na gyud ko, then find another work. As long as in the family nagid mo unity ana, di ba? So that's it. Principle number 5, time is short and everything here is temporary. Always think that these distractions, no matter how good they are, at the end they are distractions. They are distractions on the nature of it. Either married, because in heaven, sakto ba no marriage, right? Till death do us part. After you died, hey brother, hey sister, because the contract expires after death. Tama ba bro? Alright. So businesses in this earth, no matter you build empire, competition ni Elon, that's for nothing at the end of the day. A hobby, all of these things, always remember, time is short, and we need to give our life, whatever it is, for what it's worth. Lord, here's my life. Here's a tiny, insignificant, to your sight, Lord, worthless piece of dust. A little spark that is here and now it's not. Lord, I know that this life is temporary. I know that I need to focus on the spiritual stuff. I need to focus on these things. I need to really focus on you, no? So that's the thing. And I just want to say no with all my heart that we are on the phase right now na as a church ba, we are, because of the issues and the things that we have we have overcome, let's just put that word, uh, we we kind of slow down in growth in terms of, di ba? And we are in the phase na maybe it's time for us to go out and, give a little bit of our life to others in a way, di ba? Kay we know that time is short, and the gospel message is not a message na like there's an urgency to it. No, there's an urgency to it. So I just want to share that kay we need to get back to what is the impending crisis. People are going to hell, and people are dying like every second, like a people die, a soul die, a soul enters to hell, hell, and there's no there's no salvation for them. And while we don't know who are saved and not saved, maybe it's time for us to really go out there and share the love of Christ bitaw to each and every one of us. And if you're here and if you want to know more about Jesus, God, who He is, kindly reach out lang a member, uh, and we would be happy to share that to you. All right, so let us pray.